November 23, 2006, a chillingly calm 911 call turned a suburban home into a crime scene. Paramedics and police arrived to find 28-year-old English teacher Ashley Scott battered beyond recognition, her once bright future snuffed out by a brutal assault. As whispers of infidelity, manipulation, and years of hidden violence surface, one question hangs over every twisted detail. How did a college sweetheart romance spiral into this night of horror, and who will ever be held accountable? This is the murder of Ashley Scott. Thanksgiving is typically a time for families to come together, multiple generations united around the dinner table in the home of the family elders. It's a moment to reflect, to share gratitude for the past year, and to show love and appreciation for one another. This is the tradition in many households, but not everyone follows these customs. In some families, love and unity are replaced with tension, resentment, and even violence. Holidays carry no special weight, and the lines of acceptable behavior have long been crossed. This story sheds light on a chilling tragedy that unfolded within one such family. It all began on November 23, 2006, at exactly 3:46 p.m., when a disturbing call was made to emergency services in Memphis, Tennessee. Emergencies don't take breaks for holidays, and so 911 dispatchers are always prepared for the unexpected. But even with that understanding, the operator who answered the call that afternoon was left deeply unsettled, a reaction he later shared with a colleague. What unnerved him wasn't just the nature of the situation, but the eerie composure of the caller. It was as if the man on the line was casually ordering food, not reporting a life-threatening emergency. He identified himself as Jeffrey Scott and claimed his wife had been unconscious since 11 a.m. In the background, another voice interjected, coldly stating she was likely already dead. When the dispatcher pressed for more details, Scott replied flatly, "She was breathing a moment ago. Now she's dead." His tone never changed. Recognizing the potential severity of the situation, authorities immediately dispatched a specialized unit to the scene. Within minutes, officers arrived at the residence, where Jeffrey greeted them and directed them to the bedroom, where his wife, Ashley Scott, lay motionless. When officers stepped into the bedroom, they found a man leaning over Ashley Scott, performing CPR. He introduced himself as Dr. Robert McGee. A longtime friend of Jeffrey's, McGee told responders that Ashley was still clinging to life, but only barely. Her pulse was faint, and her blood pressure was critically low. Paramedics quickly assessed her condition and confirmed his evaluation. They suspected she had suffered a severe head injury, likely from a blow with a blunt object. Her pupils were dilated and unresponsive to light, and blood was seeping from both her nose and mouth. The rest of her body revealed the extent of her suffering. Bruises and abrasions covered her legs, chest, and back. The medical team moved swiftly, initiating emergency resuscitation efforts in a desperate attempt to save her. They did everything they could: intubation, defibrillation, powerful drugs to stimulate her heart. But nothing worked. Ashley Scott was slipping away, and despite their best efforts, the medical team could only watch as her condition worsened. She was rushed to the hospital, where a neurosurgeon was brought in to evaluate her upon arrival. His findings echoed the fears of the paramedic. At just 28 years old, Ashley was in the final stages of brain death. Her vital organs were shutting down one by one, and there was no chance of recovery. In the face of such irreversible damage, doctors made the heartbreaking decision to end life support. Not long after, Ashley Scott was pronounced dead. There was no mistaking the brutality Ashley Scott had endured. Her right ear was discolored, an unnatural green, commonly seen in boxers who take repeated hits to the same area. A clear imprint of a man's shoe was stamped into her back, suggesting she had been stomped on, or worse, jumped on. Her frail body was littered with bruises in various stages of healing, a haunting indication that this wasn't a one-time act of violence, but something that had been happening over time. As doctors scrambled to save her, investigators began questioning both Jeffrey Scott and Dr. Robert McGee. The doctor quickly explained that he had been the one to push for calling 911, described what had led him there. Around 2:30 p.m., he received a call from Jeffrey, an old college friend with whom he kept occasional contact. Jeffrey told him that he and Ashley had been drinking the night before, and afterward she became ill. According to Jeffrey, Ashley had gone to bed the night before and simply never woke up. It was only then, he claimed, that he decided to call for help. Although Dr. McGee was busy at the time, he put his responsibilities on hold and headed to the couple's home. When he arrived, he found Jeffrey sitting beside Ashley, who showed no signs of life. Right away, McGee sensed that something wasn't being said. He suspected the couple had argued and that something serious had happened, something they initially hoped to conceal. That, he believed, was the real reason they reached out to him, instead of calling 911 right away. He was aware the Scotts had been going through a rough patch. Ashley had turned to alcohol, and Jeffrey had a reputation for losing his temper and hitting her. But once McGee examined Ashley, he realized the situation was far worse than anything he'd imagined. There was no hope left. Ashley needed urgent medical intervention and fast. Realizing the gravity of her condition, Dr. McGee insisted that Jeffrey call 911 immediately. As events unfolded, Robert began to piece together the bigger picture. It was clear that something far more serious had occurred, perhaps even a calculated act of violence. He later admitted to authorities that he intentionally kept Jeffrey at the scene, suspecting that the man might try to escape. Meanwhile, Jeffrey showed no emotion, not fear, not guilt. Nothing. He seemed completely indifferent to the fate of the woman he once claimed to love. When officers questioned him about what had happened, Jeffrey recounted a dispute the night before. He said he had discovered messages Ashley had exchanged with another man and believed she was having an affair. Jeffrey claimed that, overwhelmed by the betrayal, he struck Ashley, but insisted it happened only once. According to him, she was heavily intoxicated, stumbled and fell. He portrayed her as a habitual drinker prone to erratic behavior and said he was tired of dealing with her outbursts. That night, he kicked her out of the house as he claimed to have done before and said she spent the night in the garage. The next morning, he found her still lying there, apparently asleep. Moved by pity, he said he carried her back inside and placed her on the bed. But as the hours passed and she didn't wake up, he realized something was wrong. Only then, he claimed, did he try to revive her and eventually call his doctor friend to come over. Nevertheless, the police dismissed his account. Upon their arrival, the woman was found covered in bruises from head to toe. Her face and head severely battered, and she was bleeding. Even if she had been intoxicated and fallen, wouldn't have resulted in such extensive injuries. It was evident she had been assaulted. Scott was taken into custody and initially charged with aggravated assault. However, once the autopsy results were obtained, the charge was escalated to first-degree murder. The pathologist's report was grim, revealing that Ashley Scott's cause of death was a subdural hematoma on the right side of her brain. Such injuries result from a violent blow to the head, causing the brain to collide with the skull, leading to significant bleeding and swelling, which in turn restricts the flow of oxygen. This triggers the failure of vital organs and systems in her body. It's an agonizing process. What makes it even more heartbreaking is that she could have survived if help had been administered promptly, ideally within the first few hours. Moreover, over 50 hematomas were discovered on her body, each varying in color and intensity, which corroborated the statements from medical personnel that she had been subjected to repeated assaults. The extent of Ashley's suffering was unimaginable. The most chilling part of it all was that the person responsible for her pain was someone who was supposed to protect her. After Jeffrey's arrest, detectives started investigating the crime scene. Evidence of a struggle was evident throughout the house, with items scattered everywhere and furniture upturned. A shattered vase was found in the living room. On the kitchen table, near a laptop, were printed messages between Ashley and her lover, which aligned with the suspect's claims about the motive behind the crime. Upon further inspection of the garage, officers discovered blood stains on the floor. Inside Mrs. Scott's car, they found women's clothing and personal belongings, including a handbag with her documents and passport. It seemed the victim had been planning to flee, but never had the chance. The officers then decided to interview the family's relatives and friends, uncovering surprising details about their lives and circumstances, which provided more insight into the incident. Sadly, women sometimes fall in love with the wrong men, and become entangled in relationships that start off full of promise. However, over time, the person they care for transforms into an oppressive tyrant, turning their lives into a living nightmare. Victims of both emotional and physical abuse often lose touch with reality, and may even rationalize the abuser's behavior. In these situations, outside psychological support is crucial, as the victim is frequently unable to help themselves or break free. Ashley Scott, born Nate Pittman on November 4, 1978, in Bossier City, Louisiana, faced a difficult start. Her parents separated before she was born, but destiny eventually favored her mother, Donna, who met and married Jimmy Pittman. Jimmy adopted Ashley and loved her unconditionally from the moment she was born. Notably, Jimmy already had a 5-year-old daughter named Kika from a previous relationship. Sadly, Jimmy and Donna's marriage didn't last, and they divorced a few years later. It's important to mention that Donna was the one who left the family and eventually remarried. Ashley decided to stay with her father, though she continued to maintain a relationship with her mother. Despite the divorce, Ashley had a happy childhood, growing up to be kind and well-behaved. Those around her saw her as a true beauty and predicted a promising future for her. In 1996, she graduated from high school and went on to attend Watchett of Baptist University in Arkansas. It was there that she met her first love. Jeffrey Scott, who also attended the same school, happened to enroll at the university and their paths crossed. Jeffrey, captivated by her radiant smile, soon struck up a relationship with her. The young couple appeared perfect, always seen together and holding hands. Ashley's friends admired her, thinking she had found a dependable partner. Ashley played into their curiosity by sharing how sweet and kind he was, and how fortunate she felt to have him. In February, Pittman earned her long-awaited degree in education, bringing her childhood dream closer to reality. She had always wanted to become a teacher and dedicate her life to children. Then, on June 9, 2001, Ashley and Jeffrey tied the knot. However, things did not unfold as she had imagined in her youthful dreams. Unexpectedly, a darker side of her chosen partner began to emerge. While others were taken aback, the bride had been aware of it all along, but had chosen to overlook it. A year before the wedding, Ashley sent a letter to her sister, Kika, explaining that she could no longer maintain contact with them and asked them to respect her decision. As a result, her family was not invited to the wedding either. Friends of Ashley who were fortunate enough to attend the ceremony were taken aback. The overwhelming majority of the guests were from the groom's side, despite Ashley having a large, close-knit family. This struck them as unusual. However, they later understood why. The reason was that her family did not approve of Jeffrey, and he made no attempt to change their opinion. Behind the facade of a seemingly nice guy, something darker lurked. He often spoke disparagingly about her family, and behaved inappropriately toward them, feeling completely justified in doing so. What was most shocking, however, was Ashley's reaction. It was as if she was making excuses for his behavior. During the wedding, Jeffrey insulted some of her friends once again and acted arrogantly. After the newlyweds relocated to Cordova, a suburb of Memphis, Tennessee, Ashley's relationships with many people began to deteriorate. Those who didn't completely cut ties still kept in touch, but maintained their distance. After the Jeffrey began working as a computer systems technician at his father's company, while Ashley, now Mrs. Scott, took a job as an English teacher at a middle school. She was well liked by everyone. Ashley was seen as beautiful, cheerful, intelligent, and sociable. She loved her work and had a strong bond with her students. Later, Paul duly described Ashley as a skilled professional and talented educator. He shared that she was the main reason he looked forward to teaching English each day. In court, he confessed that the school was the only place where she truly felt safe and appreciated, a refuge where Jeffrey Scott couldn't reach her. Over time, however, the relationship between the couple continued to deteriorate. Ashley's bond with her family nearly disintegrated. She refused to discuss it and referred to the situation as her personal choice. Undoubtedly, these decisions were influenced by a master manipulator, her husband. In the early years of their marriage, Jeffrey exerted complete control over her, isolating her from any external support. Constant criticism over the smallest of things gradually eroded Ashley's self-esteem. Scott did everything he could to suppress her. During this time, she communicated with only a handful of people, one of whom was her childhood friend, Lori. The two had been friends since 5th grade and stayed in touch into adulthood. In September 2006, a high school reunion was planned for Ashley's alma mater. She was excited to attend, and despite her husband's reluctance, she decided to go. While those at the reunion didn't notice any major changes in her, Lori couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Throughout the evening, Jeffrey called Ashley repeatedly, preventing her from relaxing or enjoying herself. He interrogated her about who she was speaking with, what she was wearing, what she was eating and drinking, and what she was discussing, essentially trying to control every aspect of her life. During this time, Ashley confided in Lori about the nightmare she was living, revealing that she couldn't continue like this. She admitted that she was considering divorce, and had even reached out to a divorce attorney. She also confessed that she was aware of her husband's ongoing infidelities. For example, she mentioned an affair with a colleague named Blair Brown, someone she had once gotten along with. However, she explained that over time, she had forgiven Blair. Blair had contacted her to reveal Jeffrey's true nature and the danger he posed. It's important to note that this party marked the last night of Ashley's life. After that, Ashley stopped communicating with anyone for several weeks, and new bruises began to appear on her body. Detectives took an interest in the accounts shared by Ashley's relatives and friends, gathering valuable information through their conversations. Lori revealed that, shortly before Ashley's death, Jeffrey had called her multiple times to complain about his wife. He claimed that Ashley drank excessively, lost her balance, and often fell, which he used to explain the bruises on her body. However, the following morning, Ashley would have no memory of these events and would blame him instead. Jeffrey accused their mutual acquaintance, Blair, of corrupting Ashley, claiming she had turned her against him and fostered her alcohol dependency. He also expressed that he no longer wanted children because he felt disgusted by his wife after everything that had happened. Jeffrey accused Ashley of being unfaithful, lying, and struggling with alcoholism. Despite his claims, didn't believe him and felt he was only trying to cover for himself. Eventually, Lori realized that Ashley had become a victim of domestic violence and was in serious trouble. After each of Jeffrey's calls, Lori would try to reach Ashley, but her friend never answered, which was unusual. The last time they saw each other was just before the tragic event. The two went shopping, but Ashley didn't buy anything for herself. She seemed sad and deep in thought. Lori attempted to talk to her about her marriage, but Ashley didn't want to discuss it, insisting she didn't want to ruin the evening. She briefly mentioned that she was considering divorce, but was terrified of taking that step. Ashley knew Jeffrey well, and was afraid his reaction would be completely unpredictable. Shortly after, Blair Brown, whose name had come up frequently in conversations about the Scott family, was brought in for questioning. Blair admitted that she had indeed been Jeffrey's lover in the past. Blair, having experienced Jeffrey's uncontrollable fits of rage firsthand, knew all too well how dangerous he could be. It was established that her friendship with Ashley had been rekindled about 6 months before the crime. Blair felt sympathy for her and offered occasional support. She also confessed that her relationship with Jeffrey had been a mistake and apologized multiple times for it. The two women occasionally met up for drinks. Ashley would often seek refuge at Blair's place to escape Jeffrey. One day, however, Jeffrey tracked her down and came for her. In that moment, Blair witnessed a brutal attack. Jeffrey struck Ashley multiple times in the face before throwing her out onto the street, completely indifferent to the fact that Blair was a witness. Even after this incident, Ashley continued to downplay her husband's guilt, making excuses for his actions. During another interrogation, Scott admitted that he had only contacted Robert McGee 12 to 15 hours after the argument. During that time, his wife was unconscious and alone in the garage. Jeffrey continued to insist that he had only struck her once in response to discovering her infidelity. Afterward, he sent her to the garage, threw bedding on the floor, and left her there. The bleeding woman was left to spend her final hours freezing and in pain while her husband rested comfortably in the house. However, the autopsy results contradicted his claims. It was evident that Jeffrey had consistently mistreated his wife. Further investigations revealed that Jeffrey occasionally hired escorts, even while Ashley was at the reunion. Despite this, he continued to blame her for all their problems. In fact, shortly before she decided to file for divorce, Ashley had met a young man named Michael Lowe. Ashley and Michael exchanged messages from October 29 to November 22, 2006. He was the one who encouraged her to leave her husband, assuring her that he would support her and had everything prepared for her departure. Michael told her that he loved her and wanted to offer her a different life. When Jeffrey discovered their messages, he became furious and decided to teach his unfaithful wife a lesson. The trial of Jeffrey Scott began on January 13, 2009. The prosecution argued that the crime was premeditated. It was clear that the argument between the couple had started in the living room, where a broken vase was found. The violence then escalated as they moved through the house, with Ashley suffering abuse in nearly every room. Blood stains were found in almost every room. The divorce attorney Ashley had consulted testified on behalf of the prosecution. The divorce attorney explained that she had met with Ashley the day before her death. At that time, all the divorce documents were prepared, and Ashley simply needed to pack her things and leave while Jeffrey was at work. Rachel advised Ashley to leave secretly, which explained the items and documents found in her car. However, Ashley did not follow the expert's advice. She wanted to confront her husband before leaving, decision that turned out to be fatal. The attorney did everything she could to help Ashley, even offering her services for a symbolic fee. She also mentioned that she knew her client had been drinking, which had led her to quit her beloved job. Ashley had used alcohol to numb the emotional pain she felt in her marriage and needed support. For a long time, the women communicated in secret to ensure that Ashley's departure would be as safe as possible. Since her husband controlled all of her calls, they arranged to meet on neutral ground or used payphones to communicate. Many witnesses confirmed seeing scratches or bruises on Ashley, which she carefully covered with layers of makeup. Some people knew the real cause of her injuries, but felt powerless to intervene. In their final report, the medical examiners noted that Ashley had been frequently kicked. It appeared that Jeffrey would knock her to the ground and then stomp on old bruises, consistent with shoe marks, were found on her back and legs. The defense team for the accused worked relentlessly to reduce the charge to second-degree murder. They attempted to paint the victim in an unflattering light, portraying her as an alcoholic and an unstable hysteric. In short, the defense did everything they could to make the jury believe that Scott also suffered in the marriage. They discredited the victim. Couldn't defend herself because she was no longer. It was revealed that in February 2005, Ashley had been fined for drunk driving. Meanwhile, Jeffrey claimed he wanted to repair the marriage, bought a new home, and was open to having children, all for a woman who had a lover and exchanged intimate photos with him. Regarding the crime itself, he claimed he lost control, realizing his efforts were in vain, and that Ashley had found someone else. He addressed his wife's family, "But I mourn her loss and pray for her soul." In contrast, during the trial, it was noted that after his arrest, Scott didn't ask about his wife's condition. Instead, he inquired about the outcome of a recent football game. His attorney resorted to underhanded tactics. During his statement, he even suggested that the victim sustained most of her injuries during a seizure caused by alcohol withdrawal. An independent expert was found to support this claim. To counter this, the assistant county medical examiner was called to testify. He read the autopsy results, listed all the injuries on the body, and most importantly, confirmed that the cause of death could not have been the result of accidental falls. He argued that the defense's claim of an unintentional crime was absurd. It was evident that the victim had tried to escape her tormentor, but out of a lingering affection for her husband, hoped to end things on amicable terms. Meanwhile, the accused showed her the printout of her messages with Michael, then attacked her. As he repeatedly struck her, he knew he was inflicting excruciating pain and suffering. He then finished her off in the garage, where she lost consciousness. Scott saw the severity of her injuries, but chose to ignore them and failed to seek medical help. Instead, he waited and only then called a doctor. The prosecutor argued that the accused wanted his wife dead. However, an unexpected piece of evidence surfaced. Investigators discovered that Ashley had been trying to save the marriage. It was revealed that she had been taking special medication to get pregnant and had supported the purchase of a new home. Perhaps she had become so dependent on the toxic relationship that she couldn't imagine life without Jeffrey. Yet, she eventually decided to leave. It's possible that she didn't want to leave secretly, hoping that her husband would change and that everything would work out. Victims of abuse often hold on to such illusory hopes, clinging to the belief that things could improve. On January 19, 2009, Jeffrey Scott was found guilty of second-degree murder. Even the judge expressed dissatisfaction with the jury's verdict, criticizing them because the vote in favor of the original charge was 12-1. One juror did not believe the accused was guilty enough for first-degree murder. According to state law, a unanimous decision is required to convict someone of first-degree murder. This left the victim's family deeply disheartened. The accused will serve 25 years behind bars without the possibility of parole. However, many feel this punishment is insufficient for someone who tormented a woman for years. He isolated her from everyone, manipulated her, and made her believe that neither she nor her family was worthy of being part of his life. Ashley's father, in particular, was heartbroken, stating, "Reveal the deep pain and heartbreak that come from losing a loved one under such tragic circumstances." His grief highlights how difficult it is to accept the loss of a child in such a brutal way, knowing who was responsible. This heartbreaking story teaches us the importance of staying connected to the people who care about us. Isolation, especially in context of an abusive relationship, can have devastating consequences. Our loved ones are often the ones who can see what we can or may be too afraid to acknowledge, and their support can be the lifeline we need. It's a reminder that no matter what, we must never close ourselves off from those who truly have our best interests at heart.